From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aylia Batool. House Democratic leaders have condemned President Donald Trump after he posted messages calling for the deaths of several Democratic lawmakers. In a joint statement, Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar said the threats were disgusting and dangerous. They urged Republicans to speak out. Trump's post targeted Senators Alyssa Slotkin and Mark Kelly, as well as Representatives Jason Crow, Chrissy Houlihan, Maggie Goodlander, and Chris Deluzio. He accused them of urging U.S. service members to ignore illegal orders and claimed they should be arrested and tried.
We had patriotic members of the House and the Senate have their lives threatened by Donald Trump in the most unhinged, unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American way. Disgusting and dangerous what Donald Trump has said.
The Democratic leaders said political violence has no place in the country. They pointed to Trump's role in the January 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol and said his rhetoric fits a pattern of attacks on veterans, military families, and public servants. They added they are coordinating with the House Sergeant at Arms and Capitol Police to ensure the safety of the lawmakers and their families. The White House says the shutdown of the Department of Education is in its final stage. Officials say states, not Washington, will soon take full control of education.
President Trump took a significant step toward delivering on a core campaign promise to finally close the Department of Education.
Spokesperson Caroline Leavitt told reporters the administration has fulfilled its promise to close the department. She said powers, duties, and budget will be shifted to the states. Leavitt said President Donald Trump views this as a major step to reduce federal bureaucracy and return control to local communities. Education Secretary Linda McMahon said coordination with federal and local agencies is nearly complete.
We have linked 6 groundbreaking partnerships with other federal agencies to delegate education department programs that are redundant with existing programs at Labor, State, Interior, and HHS.
McMahon added that key programs, especially those supporting low-income families, will continue under state management. She said children and families will not lose access to essential services during the transition. President Donald Trump met a group of former Israeli prisoners and their families at the White House on Thursday. The delegation included 26 people who were freed last month under the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Trump said the country stands with them and called their survival amazing. The meeting follows the ceasefire that took effect on October 10th. It included a prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. Since the deal began, Hamas has released 20 Israeli prisoners alive. It has also returned the remains of 27 out of 28 prisoners. Israeli media say more exchanges may follow as negotiations continue. Many of the families describe it as a moment of relief after weeks of fear and uncertainty. Charlotte, the largest city in North Carolina, is seeing a major backlash against a week-long federal crackdown on immigrant communities. Residents say the raids are disrupting daily life and frightening families. More than 30,000 students walked out of class to protest the operation. They marched with signs and chanted against deportations, saying they fear their parents could be detained on the way to work or while picking up groceries. Crowds also gathered outside a local Home Depot, where day laborers are often arrested. Protesters lined both sides of the road, holding signs and cheering as drivers honked. Local leaders joined them, saying immigrants are vital to the city's economy, schools, and culture. The raids, known as Operation Charlotte's Web, targeted workplaces, homes, and public spaces. Analysts say U.S. citizens have also been detained. Community patrols, church groups, and parents are now working together to keep families safe. The United States Coast Guard has denied a report claiming it will stop classifying swastikas and nooses as hate symbols. Officials called the report categorically false. Acting Commandant Admiral Kevin Ludday said swastikas, nooses, and extremist imagery remain prohibited. He added that the service will continue to take these cases seriously. The Washington Post had reported that new guidance would label such symbols as potentially divisive rather than banned. The Department of Homeland Security dismissed the report as false and accused the newspaper of publishing inaccurate information. The right-facing clockwise swastika is also used by Hindus as a sacred symbol linked to the sun. But the Coast Guard stresses that extremist versions remain banned in its ranks. The new policy, effective December 15th, requires supervisors to investigate and order the removal of such symbols. The Coast Guard says it remains committed to a safe and respectful workplace. The Department of Education has ruled that nursing is no longer a professional degree. The change comes under President Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, and it could make nursing school harder to afford. The new law caps borrowing at $100,000 for graduate students and $200,000 for professional programs. Nursing no longer qualifies for the higher limit. Graduate students can borrow up to $20,500 a year, while professional programs can get up to $50,000. Grad Plus loans will end in July 2026. Nursing groups warn this will worsen the national nurse shortage. The American Nurses Association says limiting funding will damage patient care at a time of rising demand. Nursing education is already costly. A bachelor's degree can run from $6,000 to more than $60,000 a year. A master's degree can exceed $100,000. More than 260,000 students are enrolled in entry-level nursing programs across the country. Türkiye no longer is offering the protections Uyghur refugees once relied on. Details coming up after the break. Human rights groups say Türkiye no longer is offering the protections Uyghur refugees once relied on. They allege the government has tightened rules under pressure from China, leaving many Uyghurs exposed to detention and possible return to China. A new Human Rights Watch report warns that residence permits are being canceled, citizenship requests denied, and vague restriction codes used to block services. It also cites cases of arbitrary detention and pressure on detainees to sign voluntary return papers. Justice for All's Save Uyghur campaign says the findings match what Uyghur families have been reporting for years. Many are now afraid to renew documents or even leave their homes. Justice for All President Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid says the situation shows that Uyghurs remain vulnerable even outside China. He said when families fear detention every time they step outside, the systems meant to protect them are failing. Justice for All's Save Uyghur campaign is urging the international community to act quickly, expand resettlement pathways, and monitor Turkey's treatment of Uyghur refugees. It is also urging the international community to confront China's ongoing crimes against humanity. Israeli soldiers shot dead 2 Palestinian teenagers in occupied East Jerusalem, Wafa news agency reports. 6 Palestinians, including a child, were hurt as Israeli troops and illegal settlers carried out raids across the occupied West Bank. Medics in Nablus said 4 people were hospitalized after Israeli soldiers opened fire near the National Hospital and Faisal Street. Witnesses reported military vehicles damaging storefronts as raids spread into the old city. Troops fired live rounds and stun grenades. Palestinians threw stones. Clashes grew. Israeli raids also hit the nearby towns of Beita, Urif, and Beit Furik. Homes were searched and residents were held for field interrogations. One young man was arrested. Another was beaten. In eastern Qalqilia, Israeli settlers attacked Palestinian farmers with sticks and stones, injuring 2 men who were taken to a Nablus hospital. Israel says one soldier was moderately wounded during an overnight raid. Violence has surged since Israel's genocide in Gaza began over 2 years ago. Israel has killed more than 1,076 Palestinians in the West Bank since October 2023. On World Children's Day yesterday, life in Gaza's Barij refugee camp shows how far a normal childhood is for Palestinians. Palestinian children are growing up in tents with little water, food, or safety. Many have lost parents and stand in long lines for water and meals. Some care for younger siblings because there is no one else. 10-year-old Aylia Abu Zubaydah lost her father and 4 siblings in Israeli strikes. She and her mother now struggle to meet basic needs in a soaked tent. Her mother says children miss schools because they must fetch water. She says most children here are orphans and deprived of the opportunities others have. Aylia says this day should be for celebration, but she spends it carrying water. She says children elsewhere are in classrooms, while Gaza's children live in tents and hope to return to normal life. Pakistani security forces say they have killed 23 militants in 2 raids near the Afghan border. Tensions between Islamabad and Kabul remain high. The military says the first raid took place in the Kurram district in the Pakistani province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Troops launched a targeted operation against outfits, including the Pakistan Taliban. These killings pushed the week's toll to more than 30 as Pakistan carries out raids after a November 11th suicide bombing in the capital Islamabad that left 12 people dead. Pakistani leaders blame both India and Afghanistan for supporting armed groups, which both countries deny. Kabul accuses Islamabad of violating its sovereignty. Violence has surged as the Pakistan Taliban grow more aggressive, with attacks hitting a decade high this year. Baby food giant Nestle is facing fresh criticism for adding sugar to baby cereals sold across Africa. A new investigation by Public Eye says more than 90% of sampled Cerelac products contained added sugar. Tests found an average of 6 grams per serving. Campaigners say this risks children's health at a time when childhood obesity is rising. They accuse Nestlé of double standards because versions sold in richer countries have no added sugar. Nestlé calls the report misleading and claims its cereals meet national standards. It argues that mild sweetness helps infants accept food and fight malnutrition. Public Eye and 19 African civil society groups want Nestlé to stop adding sugar entirely. They warn of a growing epidemic of diet-related diseases. Nestlé says it is expanding no added sugar options and disputes the testing methods. But pressure on the company continues to build across the continent. A UN-backed ceasefire supported by the United States is failing to deter Israel's violence in Gaza. Israeli forces carried out fresh attacks across central and southern Gaza on Friday, striking areas in Khan Yunis, Rafah, Beit Lahia, and Gaza City. Residential buildings were demolished in several neighborhoods. A displaced Palestinian was shot and killed outside the so-called Yellow Line south of Khan Yunis, according to Nasser Hospital. In the north, an Israeli drone strike wounded 4 children. All were rushed to Al-Shifa Hospital. Israeli helicopters also fired machine guns towards the eastern side of Jabalia camp, while drones carried out simultaneous attacks. Local media reports renewed artillery shelling near Al-Burij camp and gunfire as raids continued in Rafah. The government media office says Israeli forces advanced roughly 300 meters beyond the Yellow Line in eastern Gaza City. UNICEF reports that at least 67 children have been killed since the ceasefire took effect on October 10th. Israel's genocide in Gaza has killed at least 546 Palestinians, and wounded 170,833 since October 2023. Researchers in New York say they have found a major weak point in lung cancer. A new study shows that blocking a protein called ferroptosis suppressor protein 1, or FSP1, forces cancer cells to trigger their own death. Scientists at New York University Langone Health tested an experimental drug on mice. When they shut down ferroptosis suppressor protein 1, tumors shrank by up to 80%. Many cancer cells went into a natural self-destruct process called ferroptosis. Ferroptosis occurs when stressed cells build up reactive oxygen molecules that damage DNA and cell membranes. Healthy cells can manage this stress. Cancer cells try to block it, and ferroptosis suppressor protein 1 is one of their key defenses. By disabling this defense, the new drug helped mice live longer and slowed tumor growth. Researchers say the findings may open a new path for lung cancer treatment. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.